Good evening and welcome to the Danvers Planning Board meeting of March 12, 2024. First item on the agenda is 469, 471 Maple Street, request for site plan review pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaw, submitted by 469 Maple Street, LLC, for property in the Highway Corridor zoning district. The applicant proposes a new multifamily building with 13 residential units and associated site modifications. Assessors map 18, lots 30 and 31. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, 469 Maple Street, LLC. With me tonight is Jay Martell and Dan Corbett from the LLC. Also with me tonight is Bob Griffin, the project engineer. And as stated, we are looking for site plan approval for a new multifamily development at the combination of 469 and 471 Maple Street. The property is located in the Highway Corridor Zone. And this project involves, as I said, the combination of 469 and 471 Maple Street, on which there is currently a non-conforming three-family residential use on the property now. It's a three-family home. It was built about 1900, and it's not in good condition at all. It's rather in disrepair. And in July of last year, we went to the Preservation Commission, and the Preservation Commission determined that this building was not historically significant, which allowed us to proceed forward with the permitting process to remove that structure and build in its place a new multifamily development. which will replace the existing structure with a new multifamily building, which will house 13 residential units. There will be parking under the building as well as on-site parking. We did receive a finding from the Board of Appeals, and we also received setback variances from the front, side, and rear. As you'll see when Bob Griffin presents the plans, this is a perfectly triangular lot, which makes it challenging to place, and it's rather undersized as well, to make it meet the setback requirements that are applicable in the highway corridor zone, which are typically for larger lots and bigger types of developments. So again, we're proposing 13 residential units. Each of the units is 2-bedroom. And we have parking spaces. A total of 26 parking spaces are required, and we are providing 29 parking spaces, so we do have some additional spaces. There are 15 spaces under the building and 14 surface parking. So we have, as a result of this project, a net new units of 10, because as I said, this is an existing 3-family on the site, and we're proposing 13 units, so we have a net new of 10 units. And we are in compliance as required with the affordable housing component. We will be providing 1 affordable unit, which would, of course, be a 2-bedroom unit because all of the units are 2-bedroom, as well as a monetary contribution of $70,000, again, in accordance with Section 29 of the zoning bylaw. As a public contribution for this development, the developer is proposing to provide off-site on the abutting lot, which is owned by the Danvers Electric Division, some parking, gravel parking area. This is the area where the rail trail extension is going to be. So we thought that would be a good public amenity, if you will, to add to the site, or to the project, I should say. And we worked with the planning department. We also met with the Rail Trail Committee back in September of last year, and we received unanimous support from the committee for the creation of 12 parking spaces in a gravel parking lot. We would also, in conjunction with that, be providing an access easement over the project to access those parking spaces. So the applicant is proposing to construct those parking spaces, the gravel parking lot, contemporaneously with the development of this project. Let's see, we've met, obviously, in conjunction with that, we've met with planning staff as well as the electric division and DPW to come up with the location and general design of the gravel parking lot. You do have with this application package the full site plan set, including architectural plans and floor plans. We worked extensively with the Board of Appeals. It took us a few meetings to get through the Board of Appeals. We revised the architectural plans to provide a very residential appearance building. The initial building that we had presented to the Board of Appeals, the board felt was not as residential in design, and so we resolved that through the renovations and to the plans and the building elevation plans and floor plans that were submitted with the application to you are the result of that. Was not as residential in design, and so we got that. You also have floor plans. You have a stormwater management report as well as a parking and traffic summary. We've gone through 2 rounds of comments with the engineering department. First round was on February 26th, and Griffin Engineering responded to those comments completely, and you should have in your package a response from the engineering department dated March 8th, indicating that all issues have been addressed, and they are asking for a stormwater report relative to the gravel parking area, which we will provide and would certainly accept as a condition. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Nancy, and good evening. If we could go back to the SC1 sheet first, just for a moment. So I just want to point out a couple things on the plan. As Nancy pointed out, it's pretty much a perfect triangle. It's about 110 feet on the eastern side, and then you've got two legs that are 409 feet and 395 feet of frontage. This gives us about 1/2 acre of land for the entire parcel, again, in a zone that requires 1 acre. So we're significantly undersized even after putting the two parcels together. The topography of the site is such that the highest point is the pointy end of it. Well, the narrow point of the triangle is about elevation 112, and it drops down 14 feet from there to the northeast direction, so that the lowest elevation of the property is about elevation 98 feet. There's no wetlands on the property. There's a couple of boxes in the plan. Here. Those are where we did some test pits a few months ago to characterize soil conditions. I'll talk about that more a little bit as we get going along, but I would just say good sandy soils, perfect for stormwater infiltration. The electric department obviously owns the adjacent parcel. The adjacent parcel is about 1 acre in size, and they've got some very tall, high voltage transmission lines on there. One tower there, and another tower there. There's also a SESD sewer easement that runs through the property. There was a sewer line constructed on the parcel in approximately 1977. It's 30 inches in diameter, so it's a good-sized sewer, and it's quite deep. It's about 23 feet at the eastern end and about 36 feet at the narrow point of the triangle. And we've had discussions with the SCSD as we've been going along. We're obviously trying to make sure that we don't do anything to the easement or to their sewer line. We're going to have to raise up a sewer manhole, and we've spoken to them or transmitted plans to them about how we're going to go about doing that. We're going to reuse the building service that connects to that 30-inch sewer line as part of this work. Okay, so let's go to the next one, please. Again, pretty straightforward site layout. We've tried to, respect the shape and work with the property as much as we can. In the process of the back and forth with the engineering department, the electric department, we've moved the parking lot for the town's bike path a little closer to the point, again, the narrow point of the triangle, and that was to better situate the parking spaces. The electric light department wanted to have the parking spaces so that they were not directly underneath the high voltage wires, so that if I suppose ice in the winter or something else fell off the wires in the summertime, it wouldn't be landing on the cars directly. So that's how we ended up with this particular alignment and why it might be a little different from some of the earlier plans you may have seen. We're also showing on this plan a 15-foot wide easement. Here. This is to allow grading and access during construction. And we're showing an easement here to provide access to the town property across the private property. So that would be for the future bike path parking users. Front door of the building is here. We've got access around the sides here and a lower level access out to the front here. We've got about, where's my number here? I think we've got about 400 or 500 feet of sidewalk that we're going to construct along the frontage of our property, connecting the doggy daycare here with our driveway. There's a public sidewalk on the opposite side of the street that connects to Leahy and back down towards the town fire station. Let's see. The building, again, this is about 110 feet wide and about 75 feet deep. 3 stories of residential housing on top of 1 story of parking. 5 two-bedroom units on the first floor, 5 two-bedroom units on the second floor, 3 up on the top floor. And so the building sort of narrows down in usable area as you get up to the top, and that's, again, because of this the residential gables and the architectural detailing for that area. The overall height of the building is 47 feet in a zone that requires 55 feet. So we're well below the height requirements for the building. And again, it's a nice-looking residential-style building. Site impervious surfaces, we'll be at 59% after construction of the building and the parking lot and the sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. That compares to a 70% maximum in this zone. So we're well below the impervious requirements in that regard. The other thing that and we'll go to the next page if we could, please. The other thing that the impervious triggers, of course, is a stormwater management system underneath the parking lot. Here is a stormwater infiltration system. We're going to take essentially 3/4 of the roof runoff and pipe it into that infiltration system. We're going to have a couple of catch basins and a pre-treatment device to direct water into that infiltration basin as well. After the infiltration basin, if the capacity of the basin is exceeded, oh, look at this. Thank you. No worries. I'm getting shorter every year. The discharge will come out to a location right here, so a level spreader discharging any excess water in the direction that it currently flows. We're also creating a fairly level area for the town bike path parking. So this area, a little hard to see the proposed grades, but basically, 112, 111, 110 at that corner. So a very flat parking area. And the terrain in this area right now is somewhat depressed, so it sort of forms a bowl in that area. So there'll be as much as 10 feet of fill placed to create the town parking area. So it's a significant amount of fill to bring in, but at the same time it will end up marrying in with the adjacent grades, and it will, I think, serve a future bike path very well. It'll also have an easy grade in and out from Maple Street, so very flat slope across here. As we enter the property, we're going to drop down to our basement level parking, so we've got that 8 feet of grade change from here down to the basement level here. We make up most of that in here, and then a little bit across the parking lot, across those 9 or 10 spaces at the front there. But again, it's all paved, it's all curbed, all the stormwater is directed into our new stormwater management system. And again, pretty straightforward for this type of development. We did provide a stormwater management report to the engineering department, and I think they're satisfied with that based on the most recent comments that we got back. So flipping on to the next sheet, just quickly touch on site utilities. There's a 20-inch water line here in Maple Street, so we're going to bring in a fire protection line and a potable water service line off of that to serve the building. Sewage goes out the back again into that 30-inch sewer line that the SESD owns. Our parking garage gets treated through an MDC trap that also discharges into the SESD sewer line. You can see on the plan here, we've got a couple of outdoor light fixtures. These are about 16 feet tall, downward casting, sort of shoebox style light fixtures to minimize any casting of light onto adjacent properties or towards the roadways. We also provided a photometric plan, which is the next sheet, which it's just got a bunch of numbers on it, but basically it shows us that we've got, light in the parking lot here, which is where you would want it to be. There's a couple of light fixtures on the wall of the building as well. But by the time we get to the perimeter of the site, we're at 0-foot candles, so we're not casting light onto adjacent properties as you might expect. And next, it's the lighting plan, the landscaping plan. So the landscaping plan was prepared by Laura Rutledge, our registered landscape architect. One of the nice things about this site is that we have a pretty significant distance from the granite edging in Maple Street to our property line. And so it looks like we have more grass or more room for landscaping in front of our building than we probably really do. So we're going to be filling in that tree belt with 9 trees. We also are going to be placing some trees close to the building. The trees in the tree belt are going to be hawthorn, redbud, and I think we had a couple of, a couple of ironwoods, or also known as a hornbeam, here and here in front of the building. On the property itself, closer to the building, we've got some Crimson Point cherry trees, which are sort of narrow and upright, a number of perennials and shrubs around the front of the building as well. There's an arborvitae hedge along the doggy daycare side, and there's also a few trees, some maples, and I think there's a pin oak right there at the far end. So I think it's a very well thought out landscaping plan, and I think it's going to beautify this section of Maple Street quite a bit. And with that, I'd be happy to begin addressing any questions. Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't, I don't know if they're in our set.
They're in the February 1st.
Right, yeah, they're in the
Right.
first set. I could bring it up
Okay.
in a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's our second floor and third floor plan. Our first floor plan is very similar to the second floor plan, but you can see we've got 5 two-bedroom units on the second floor and 3 two-bedroom units on the third floor. We lose a little bit of the building space here and there, and over on these corners, and that's because of the gables dropping down and limiting the available living space, basically. And if we go to the next sheet, I think we have some elevations. So this is our front elevation here, and again, you can see, you know, the number of sort of dormers and these gables all sort of making a nice residential appeal to the building. The area in front of here gets landscaped. The first floor is up a couple of feet from the grade, and that was necessary to allow us to make the basement parking level work and have a reasonable slope from the basement level out to the street. Here's the garage door. We have recycling and trash rooms on each side there. But again, pretty straightforward, nice colors, I think, and certainly a lot of the 6/1 windows give it a nice residential feel as well. Go to the next sheet, please. So I think this is the back of the building, and here's the side. You can see the stairwells coming out from our emergency access. Here's a stair tower on that side of the building, and access up to the street through the staircase. Again, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to address them at this time.
All right, questions from the board. Tori?
Question for staff. On the publicly available maps, this combination of 2 lots looks like it is split between highway corridor and residential zoning, and that is contradicted by documentation with those maps, but I just want to clarify for the record, this is highway corridor, correct?
Yes, both lots are highway corridor.
I don't have any questions for the applicant. Thank you.
Lou, questions?
Sure, yeah, just some questions. I guess it's a question for the applicant with respect to just parking in terms of layout. So I'm a little confused just in terms of the number of parking spaces. So I thought I saw in some areas of the package that it's 2 spots per unit. And so, but are there 28 total spaces or 29?
There's 29 total spaces, and we have 3 extra as compared to the zoning requirement.
Okay, so the 3 extra, okay.
Right.
Gotcha. And in terms of the, sort of how they're going to be provided, I understand that there's going to be an underground component as well as a outside parking area.
Yeah.
In terms of how the units are, and I'm not sure, is this going to be ownership units or rental units?
Condominium units,
Okay.
and so we would probably have at least 1 parking space assigned to each unit. There's 15 spaces underneath the building, and there'll be 13 units.
I see, okay. So
And you've got 2 handicap spaces underneath the building as well. So that sort of works out very well that each unit would get at least 1 space undercover.
okay, that was what I was wondering. So,
Yeah.
so each unit would get an undercover spot, so it wouldn't be something that they would have to pay extra for or something like that, so therefore people may just park all outside instead.
I don't know what the financial arrangements are going to be necessarily, but they would have the opportunity to put 1 car underneath the cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And in terms of the, in terms of also the the parking as well. I understand that with respect to the public area, there'll be 12 spaces
That's correct.
provided, and I do see from the decision from the zoning board of appeals that it's that residents will not be using are not to use those public spaces.
That's right.
I guess the question is in terms of visitors, is that something, I know that there are going to be 3 additional spots. Is that sufficient for visitors to the units, and just in terms of how things generally work, or will people find themselves visitors parking in the rail trail spots?
Yeah, it's our intention not to have people parking in the rail trails parking spot, and I think 2 spaces per unit is really pretty generous for a 2-bedroom condominium. We probably will end up parking, somewhere around 1.5 spaces per unit.
Sure.
And so I think there'll be ample excess parking spaces available.
Okay, got it. And there will be signage, I assume, as well?
I think that was part of the draft recommendations, that we cooperate with the town regarding signage for particularly as it relates to parking in that bike path parking area.
Okay. With respect to the sort of the architectural, and I do notice, I mean, the design looks like a nice design in terms of the residential design. I like the 6/1 windows, and in terms of like the paint color scheme, is that going to be? It looks like I can see like a yellow and a gray. Is that what we're potentially looking at? I know you.
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy in the colors. I happen to be colorblind, so, but I'll let you guys decide which color you think it is.
It seems to me like it's yellow and a gray, and that would be
Yeah.
representative of what it would be in real life?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
It has not been finalized.
Has not been finalized, but it would be consistent with a residential color scheme versus something odd?
Crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, we got to sell these units.
Okay. And also, I did notice as well that there's a reference to, I think, composite wood siding. What exactly, is that a hardy plank or something?
Yes.
It is,
Yeah.
as opposed to a vinyl?
Right.
Okay. I think that's, and I guess this one last thing is in terms of I know you were before the zoning board of appeals, and were there any, and that they obviously, that it was, that they did approve it as it's currently before us. Was there any comments or anything that we should be aware of in terms of anything that transpired there? Any abutter concerns or anything of that nature?
No, I actually thought the hearings went pretty well. I think that, obviously there was some pretty significant architectural changes, and then a number of units dropped and all that, but
Sure.
I think it was a very productive process.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. I don't have any further questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Jean, any questions?
So the garage entry, is that just gonna be open to
Uh,
get to the below-grade parking?
I believe that he's showing a door at that location now, and I know that when we design these enclosed parking garages, sometimes it's actually costs less to have a garage from the heating and ventilating requirements versus having it open and allowing the freezing conditions that can otherwise develop in that area. So I don't know that if that detail has been quite finalized, but I think it's more likely than not to have a garage door.
Okay. That was my only question, thank you.
Tim, questions?
No questions.
Mike?
Just the parking lot for the rail trail says Phase 2. Is it being done at the same time, or is it being done at a later date?
So when we first submitted our application, we were looking at a phased project, and so that was the reason that showed up on the original drawings. Most recently, I think we've taken off the phasing so that it all happens at once.
Okay.
Again, subject to town approval, but.
Okay. And then I'm assuming it's okay that there's not lighting over there because it's probably going to be used mainly in the day, but has there been any thought into having any sort of lighting around the parking for that rail trail area?
Yeah, there really hasn't been any requests from the town to put lighting in that area. We did position a light fixture at that,
Yeah, the entrance
where it
and
goes
so.
into that area. So I think that'll cast some light into that parking area.
Okay, I think so too. And the last thing I have is just, you talked about parking spot quantities, and you said it was 29. 2 of them are handicapped, so you're at 27, and then 2 are guests, so you're at 25. So is it actually one of the units will only have 1 spot then, technically?
No, the handicap spaces are considered parking spaces, so you don't.
Right, but you can't
don't-
park in that if you're not a handicap resident.
Well, we- I'm
Right, so I guess that's my question, is there one, are they gonna end up parking the guest spot and then you only have one guest spot?
oh,
And is that a concern to anybody or not?
I don't think it's a concern. The zoning bylaw does not require guest spaces at all.
Yeah.
So we have 2 spaces per unit, so that's 26 spaces, and then we just happen to provide 3 extra, which is always nice to have them, but the bylaw doesn't require it because the 2 spaces for each unit accounts for, as Bob said before, having guests, because everybody won't have 2 cars who live there. So a handicapped resident would certainly be entitled to a handicapped parking space. If there is only 1 handicapped resident and then we would have 1 extra handicapped parking space, and a guest who might come who is handicapped could park there. But you are absolutely right, a non-placard individual can't park in a handicapped space.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I just had questions on just where does the rail trail coincide? Where are you picking that up?
This is the area, this land that's owned by the electric department has been laid out as the next extension of the rail trail. So it's not constructed yet, but this is where it would go from basically, is it the North Street area down and then into Middleton? What's that? Spring Street.
So you come down Spring
Sorry,
Street.
not North Street.
Spring
Spring Street.
Street, and you jump on 62 West.
That's right.
And then where do you cross over to get to? How do you cross over those lanes of traffic to get here?
I do not know.
So, if I could comment. So,
Kind of a busy way.
currently the town is in conversations with, I think our consultant, I believe it's VHB. I think we're at the point where we're discussing a couple alternative routes or design options. And I believe that all 3 of them are what you would call an off-street path or off-street trail. None of them would be, like on 62, but it would be, the right-of-way of 62 is wide enough where there would be space between, the trail and then, Route 62, the street. So there's several different kind of iterations or versions or design alternatives and so that's kind of where we're at. They all 3 of them are sort of close to this vicinity of this, parking lot. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so if you're parking your car, you're gonna take your bike out, get onto Maple Street and head toward the signalized light maybe?
No, it's not, the path's not on Maple Street, it's a little bit off of it. And so if you were leaving this trail, if you went left here or west, you'd go to Middleton, and then if you went to the right or east, you would go towards town, or
Right.
like you'd go under those 2 overpasses there, you'd go underneath it.
You would be on 62 though.
It
But it
shows
would-
it parallel, like to 62 on the rail trail website.
Yeah,
Is that what it's proposed
it's
as?
not on the street, and it's not like a bike path on 62,
Okay.
but it's off the road a little bit. There's just it gets tight in different places along this kind of 2-mile stretch. It kind of the width of the right of way narrows, and sometimes it goes closer to 62, and then sometimes it goes further away from it.
Okay.
Yep.
Where's the cross, is there a crosswalk there? So I'm just wondering how people would,
There
where's the nearest crosswalk, other than the one up at the light? Is there one here where you're gonna have a lot?
You wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to do a crosswalk to get to the trail from this parking lot, as it's currently sort of proposed. This green area is this area to the left, I guess where my cursor is owned by the town, the electric division. And then this other portion is a right-of-way that's either owned by the town or the state, and we're just trying to figure out like the best kind of location for the future trail. But I believe that this is the most, this will be the extension of the trail that will come up soonest, or like in the next like couple years. Probably less than 2 years, but don't hold me to that.
Is there a crosswalk associated with this development and the sidewalks that you're putting out in front? I mean, for people to get off the island here, if you will, to the other side of the street, or?
We're not proposing one.
So I guess the nearest one is up by the intersection of the light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you able to walk or go that way by sidewalk?
It does not appear that way.
Does the sidewalk just end at the building?
It looks like it just appears at the driveway, I believe,
So,
where my cursor is.
And Josh, I don't know, but looking at the rail trail on the website, it then continues, it hops over Maple Street and then continues on the other side. So if you were to park in that lot, you could either get on the rail trail or you'd be walking across Maple Street to the rail trail, is that correct?
The idea, I think, when we preliminary discussed it, was there would be some sort of, we don't know the exact location, but if you could see my cursor, the trail is probably going to be somewhere in this kind of area. So there would be, the idea would be that we would, at some point, there would be a small connection from this trail, kind of like this, just like a small, 5 to 8 foot wide path, wherever the trail ends up being ultimately located, just to connect it to the parking.
So that people wouldn't be walking across Maple Street?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
No, across the Maple
I wonder
Street
if
that's south of the building. Because the rail trail's gonna jump across
Let me see if I can.
Maple Street,
well, that's
not
Route 62.
this part of Maple Street.
The aerial
Not
be
this
helpful?
part of Maple
We have
Street.
an
Must be
aerial
the same.
here,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
might be helpful.
Yeah, the aerial I could bring it up too, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to show.
But if Bob wanted to talk for a minute about it, well, I'd bring it up if it's easier.
Well, I agree with Josh that this is the logical location for the rail trail along the, sort of, just to the side of the power lines and Route 62. If once it's constructed, there will be a crossing so that bikes can cross over this portion of Maple Street and continue on their way to Middleton. So there would be something sort of done here.
Yeah.
But right now, we're not proposing some way of getting from the island, as you phrased it, to the opposite side of Old Maple Street. I suppose, right now there's a sidewalk along this side of Kirkbride, and there's a sidewalk that runs along Old
Right
Maple
there.
Street, and runs all the way down to the fire station.
Yeah, right there, John.
And there's sidewalks that go laterally up and down Route 1 as well. But I think, for the future use of this area, the parking lot here, getting directly onto the bike path, probably crossing Maple Street as the bike path is constructed.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems that you'll need, the town will have to put a sidewalk, continue the sidewalk beyond the driveway. Because, as you know, people drive quite fast coming off that ramp for Route 1, going by Supino's, and then heading the other way toward Route 1 to jump on. So if you're adding another 26 to 30 people, and you're adding a lot of, potentially people using that lot for parking for the rail trail, we just want to make sure that we get out. And I'm not imposing that burden on you to extend the sidewalk down. I'm just wondering how it's all going to come together.
Jim, if you'll, not to interrupt, if you'll see up here in the aerial, this is sort of, the building, new building, proposed building is sort of in this general vicinity-ish. And so the trail, the potential trail is something like this, it would go to this intersection, I think is what you're talking about. There's discussions ultimately about how to best, do the trail crossing if it's here or if it's here. It's just one of those things that you need to figure out. There's crossings you could deal with it in different ways. So with the building right here, the parking lot sort of, and Bob corrected me if I'm wrong, the rail trail parking lot somewhere in this general vicinity-ish, it's going to be pretty close. So folks will be able to access from this proposed rail trail parking lot, accessing the trail itself before getting to this ultimate crossing and where that crossing would be. It's sort of like it's a safe landing.
So at some point, the rail trail crosses the street
Yes,
from Spring Street, if you will.
That's right.
Nichols.
Maple Street, and then it goes to Middleton that way, and then goes this way.
Where do you cross over, at Nichols or Spring Street?
That's probably one of the more, so down here, I mean, we're sort of getting away a little bit, but
Yeah, because they're on the.
but there's several different kind of iterations and design, because right now the trail ends right here.
Yep.
This piece is something that we're internally trying to figure out the best way to do it. You know, do we cross Nichols here and keep it, or do we put it over here? So that's what I mean, the different alternatives, and I don't know if I'm saying things I shouldn't say in public, but
Yeah, I just wondering how you're gonna do it.
yeah,
Just-
there's three different, that's what I mean when I was saying,
Get across,
there's three design options that we're working through.
yeah.
And this side is the harder piece that we're trying to figure out. And then, yes, the trail will then go underneath these two overpasses, keep going this way towards the project that we're talking about tonight. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I think the building's a very attractive building. I think it is a good use for the site, and I think it, with the parking, it's got adequate parking, so I don't really have any questions on the plans itself. I think Lou has a follow-up question.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up question, and this might be more for staff. I was looking at the engineering second comments. I guess this was one that was, I guess dated March the 8th. And I just had a question. I was going through, and this is at the bottom of page
Yep,
3,
sure.
dealing with snow storage.
Okay.
And I was just a little bit confused because typically, looking at it, they go through each point by point and then say, no further comment from engineering. But then I see two, both number 7 and number 15. One deals with snow storage, one deals with elevation for water service, and then I see no further comment from engineering as to both. I assume that that's related to both
Okay.
comments with respect to snow storage, as well as so, you know what I'm saying? Because typically it's,
Yep.
the engineering responds to each one, and then there are two, then there's only one engineer's second comment.
Yeah, I can't speak to. Oh, it looks like.
I think a page got
Yeah.
missed from the PDF.
Is that it?
But
Oh, there
I
you
think
go.
everything was, we're basically satisfied.
Okay.
With the exception of the future stormwater analysis associated
Right.
with the gravel parking lot.
Okay.
And just to satisfy your
Yeah.
issues or concerns, Lou, there's a condition that everything in here has to be satisfied in the
Right.
decision, so.
I guess what I wanted to make sure, engineering covered everything. So each point, engineering covered.
It looks that way.
Because it does appear that what we received was there seemed like there was a scanning, we missed a page on scanning.
Yes,
So page 4 of the March 8th
right, because it
letter.
looks like 8 through 14 is missing, it looks like. And then. like
I
you
have
said-
our March 4th response, which is what the engineering department was evaluating.
Yep.
Number 7 had to do with the dimensions of the building, number 8 had to do with the dimensions of the level spreader, 9 was snow storage areas, and we have 3 snow storage areas on the site. 10 was some comments about cutting and capping existing gas and water utilities at the main. 11 was a detail regarding electrical conduits. 12 was another comment regarding electrical conduits in the transformer location. 13 was a clean-out detail, and 14 was a note regarding water and sewer main testing and chlorination. So all pretty dry stuff, but I think we did respond to the town's comments, and I don't recall any remaining concerns.
And on engineering, this for staff, was for engineering then, were there any further comments for points, I guess, number 7 through 14?
There were none.
I don't believe so,
There are
no.
none? Okay. Okay,
Look-
thanks.
Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, this is a public meeting. Any questions or comments from the audience? If you would, use the microphone and identify yourself.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Don't hold me to it, but I believe I've heard more than once the state was going to assist, pay for, or whatever, for the rail trail crossing. I'm not sure how it's supposed to be done. All I heard was that the state offered to pay for it. So that if that assists the development with one of your questions, again, don't hold me to it, but that's what I have heard.
Thank you. Further questions, comments?
David Craig, 370 Maple Street. First of all, apologies for being late. I was on Teams, but I did get here in time to speak. This actually, I spoke at both of the ZBA meetings on this as well. I think this is a great project. Very good use of an otherwise useless piece of land. Vast improvement from what's currently there. And speaking to the rail trail, the section from Nichols over by Forest Street all the way to, I believe it's pretty much to this, where Maple Street comes out and rejoins 62, is under the purview of the state, that segment. The rest of it's being handled by the town, is my understanding. And the most difficult part of that is actually going to be the crossing in the vicinity of Nichols Street, right down the street from my house, because that's a very busy intersection. Actually, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I used to cross there to go to get my baseball cards at Chris's convenience store. I don't like crossing it now, and I certainly wouldn't send a 9-year-old to cross it. But I'd be interested to see what the state comes up with for solving that particular issue. But I look forward to the rest of the trail being developed, though. It's really going to be a big asset for the town to extend it, in the east-west direction.
Sure.
So, but fundamentally, I like this project a lot, and I'm very much in favor of it.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience? Attorney McCann?
I just have one comment and a request. I believe on the most recent plan set, the plans show a proposed stockade fence behind the very dense row of arborvitae adjacent to the doggy daycare that I think has a fence. So what we would like to do, if it's amenable to the board, is remove that proposed stockade fence and leave in the arborvitae hedge, but it seems a bit belts and suspenders to have the thick arborvitae fence and then another fence and then the doggy daycare fence. So it would be our request. That didn't make its way into the revised plan set, so we would like to remove that proposed stockade fence.
Any questions from the board on that?
Again, where is that again?
It's to the right of the proposed building.
Which plan, Bob or Nancy, does it probably show that best?
C2.
It was on one of the sheets that you were.
It actually shows up on sheet C6, which is the landscaping plan. We took it off of the site plan, but I
There
think
it
we
is.
failed to take it off of the landscaping plan. That's what happened there.
Okay, good. So I noticed it when Bob
Oh,
was,
when it says
was talking. Proposed stock right here.
So I'm sorry for that inconsistency.
Okay, I see. Yeah, proposed stockade.
So there's an existing fence there now, correct? Is that what,
No, I don't know whether there is. I'm sure the doggy daycare has a fence.
well, there's
So
a fence.
I would
There's-
hope. But we were proposing a fence, but then also the arborvitae, and that just seems unnecessary. And Bob took it off of the other sheets, but when he was presenting, I saw it was still on that one. So I just wanted to be clear, we don't want to propose that stockade fence because it is not necessary, and it looks like it's along the, what would you say, southerly lot line?
Is everyone all right with that on the board?
That's fine. It doesn't need to be one of the decisions on that.
Okay. Any further questions from the audience? Hearing none. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Decision, if you could read that, Lou?
Yes. Okay. And I don't think we need to make, do I need to make a reference to the fence in the decision?
You can add a sentence.
I can add a sentence? Okay, got it, will do. Okay, Town of Danvers Planning Board, Site Plan Review, 469 to 471 Maple Street. Date of application, February 1st, 2024. Date of hearing, March 12th, 2024. Date of decision, March 12th, 2024. The Danvers Planning Board finds the site plan submitted by 469 Maple Street LLC for property at 469 to 471 Maple Street, Assessors Map 18, lots 30 and 31, to be in substantial compliance with the criteria and regulations adopted by the town. Details of the plan review can be found on the following plans. Site plans for multifamily residence, 469 and 471 Maple Street, Danvers, Mass., prepared by Griffin Engineering Group, LLC, dated February 1st, 2024, revised to March 4th, 2024, consisting of 11 sheets. The following submission requirements have been waived. 1, Section 4.3.1, Title Sheet. The existing dwellings and easements are shown on the Site Analysis Plan, C1. 2, Section 4.3.3, Dimensional Regulations Plan. Dimensional Regulations Plan prepared by Registered Professional Engineer instead of Registered Land Surveyor. 3, Section 4.3.4, Site Construction Plan. The proposed location and dimension of drives, parking area, and curb cuts is shown on the Dimensional Regulations Ties Plan, C3. A table indicating amounts of earth material that are to be removed, added, or reused on site in cubic feet is not shown. 4, Section 4.3.6, Utilities Plan. The profile of the utilities to be constructed on site is not shown on the plan. 5, Section 4.3.7, Landscape Plan. The landscape plan is not prepared by a registered landscape architect submitted. The yard setbacks and table showing the percentage of existing and proposed of impervious surface is shown on the site layout and grading, drainage, and utilities plan, C3. 6, Section 4.3.8, Off-Street Parking and Loading Plan. The off-street and loading plan is entitled the Dimensional Regulations Plan, C2. The construction details and type of materials for surface paving is shown on the Construction Details 1, C7. Administrative. The project is subject to the following conditions. 1, prior to certificate of occupancy of the 13th unit, the rail trail parking lot shall be complete to the satisfaction of the town unless the Danvers Engineering Division or Electric Division has requested or caused delay in the parking lot construction, in which case the applicant and planning staff will determine appropriate security for completion of the parking lot. 2, prior to certificate of occupancy of the 13th unit, the proposed town access easement related to the rail trail parking lot shall be shown on a plan, and once accepted by the town, the documentation associated with the access easement shall be filed at the Registry of Deeds. 3, prior to certificate of occupancy of the 7th unit, the applicant and/or developer shall provide an affordable housing unit and/or an affordable housing payment / contribution based on the number of net new residential units pursuant to Section 29 Affordable Housing provision of the zoning bylaw. 4, residents of the new multifamily building are prohibited from parking in the rail trail parking lot. 5, the applicant will work with the town regarding directional signage related to the rail trail parking lot. 6, the applicant agrees to satisfy all the comments in the Engineering Division memorandum dated March 8, 2024. 7, if there are any changes to the approved plans, the use, or the conditions on premises, planning staff will review. If deemed a major change by staff, the applicant will have to apply for a new application for site plan review. And it is also noted that the proposed stockade fence shown on C6 will not be included. Will not be provided, rather. This project is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan review shall lapse within 3 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date. James Sears, Chair.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a clarification on condition number 2?
Sure.
My concern is that we have this as prior to the certificate of occupancy for the 13th unit, that the proposed town access easement shall be shown on a plan, and I had mentioned to Josh language that would say we would provide acceptable documentation to the town. What we don't want to see is there be some sort of a holdup on the town accepting the easement and thereby causing the certificate of occupancy to be held up, even though we've provided the documentation that is in acceptable form, and the plan is in acceptable form, but then there's a process for the town to accept the easement. We don't want to be caught in that. So I had suggested that if we could have this condition worded such that we would provide a plan that's acceptable and the easement in an acceptable form, that we need to do that as opposed to the acceptance of that by the town, because I don't know how long that might take.
So,
Josh?
so yeah, Brian and I spoke this afternoon about this condition. This was the language that we sort of feel comfortable with, because it's something that the town would be receiving. It wouldn't have, the documentation and plans wouldn't have to go to town meeting. They could simply be submitted and accepted to a select board meeting from the select board. So since, you know, they meet pretty frequently, we didn't feel that that was, you know, that shouldn't hold up the process. So that's why the language that's proposed is what was included in the decision.
Anything further?
Could you read that condition one more time?
You can read it. It's two.
Two.
Prior to certificate of occupancy, CO, of the 13th unit, the proposed town access easement related to the rail trail parking lot shall be shown on a plan, and once accepted by the town, comma, the documentation associated with the access easement shall be filed at the Registry of Deeds.
I think we just still have a concern because of, we've got condition number 1, which was fine. And then if we could have the prior to the certificate of occupancy of the 13th unit, the proposed town access easement related to the rail trail shall be shown on a plan and acceptable documentation provided, period. So that's our requirement. We have to submit an acceptable plan and the acceptable documentation, period. Then the next sentence, once accepted by the town, the documentation shall be recorded at the registry. But the condition relative to the certificate of occupancy should be geared toward the providing an acceptable plan and providing the documentation. My concern is tying the certificate of occupancy to once accepted by the town. And I'll give you an example. The issue I have is very often the selectmen do not meet in the summer. They might take the entire month of July off. Sometimes they take more than that. So we could get caught up where we're ready for a CO at the end of June and the documents can't be accepted. So if we can have a provision where the CO is held up based on providing the plan, no problem, providing acceptable documentation, which we can work out with town council and with planning staff. That's what we have to do, period. And then once it's accepted by the town, it gets recorded. But the certificate of occupancy relates to providing the plan and providing the documentation, because that's what we can control. We
You
can't
already have
control the
plan?
acceptance.
Isn't the plan right there, showing the easement? All you need is the easement language. Couldn't you do that tomorrow?
Well, the easement has to, it's typically built, and then you give the easement with, that's not an easement plan, but yes, you could turn around an easement plan pretty quickly.
That's your easement, it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
You could give them the language tomorrow. Not June. I'm just saying. There's no, I'm not trying to minimize it, but you could give them the easement language tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna hold something up. You're not gonna have your 13th unit ready in June.
You'd be amazed at how
I would
quickly
be
they can
amazed if
build.
you did. I'd wanna know who the builder is, but that would be tremendous if you could, but I think you could give them the language tomorrow. It's not gonna take,
Oh, absolutely, and I'm saying, we'll give the plan, we'll give the language. My problem is tying the certificate of occupancy
Well,
up when we have, when
that's
we
the
have
reward.
fully, but
That's
we
the
have
leverage.
fully, we have fully performed.
that's the
That's
leverage.
the issue.
That's the town's leverage.
What do you mean?
They're not
But
gonna
I've done
do
what we can do, which is to
Right.
provide
Well, I'm
the
just saying You can do
plan.
what you need to do tomorrow. There's no holdup between now and the 13th unit. There's nothing holding you up to do the access easement language. You have a plan.
Oh,
You're showing it on the
Yeah, I think
plan
you're
where it is.
misunderstanding me. I am not asking for there to be any delay in our providing the plan or our providing the language. We will have to do that 100% prior to the certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Period. And then the town can accept it when they want to accept it.
I'm just saying, what is the holdup for doing it now rather than waiting 3 months to do it? Showing an easement on a plan and having easement language.
It can be done sooner, but it also could be held up in the acceptance process. And if we have constructed, because it says under item number 1 that we have to construct it, and item number 2 is we have to provide the plan and we have to provide the documentation, absolutely got to do all that before the certificate of occupancy. That's where our obligation relative to the CO should end, because we don't have control over the acceptance step. So if we have performed everything we need to do, we should be able to get our CO. That's my request, and I think it can be done by inserting a period in here somewhere on that language, so that, and delete the acceptance language. So we have to provide the plan, we got to provide the documentation, all that's acceptable to the town. It's got to be in an acceptable form. That's all part of it. And then we can get our CO. And if the town select board has a busy agenda and they don't get to it for 3 months, that doesn't hold us up.
What do you say, Josh, on that?
I don't know if the acceptance is like, kind of like what you were saying. I don't know. It seems like there's a plan that's pretty close to finalization. There's language that could probably put together fairly quickly. And then you would just have to, you know, be added to a select board meeting, and they meet twice a month. So I don't know. And I think that's something that could be done, you know, not even close to when the building is complete or ready to be moved in. So I'm not sure if I'm seeing the issue. I could understand if the select board didn't meet very often, or, you know, other kind of extenuating circumstances, and I understand, you know, you don't want to be tied to something that you can't really, you know, time and control, but
Right.
Do you wish to extend to our next meeting to get this squared away between town staff or town council? We can, you know.
Not particularly.
Well, I'm not sure that the board is comfortable, speaking for myself, if the town is not comfortable, town staff, if that's, because Josh has mentioned that he already discussed this with Brian, and that's what they came up with for the language. I don't know if the board is willing to change the language of this decision without further input from town staff. At least I'm not comfortable. Because the staff is the staff and the.
We're good.
You know, that's their job too.
We'll take the condition as it's been drafted.
All right. So going back to, we have a motion that was made. And did you second it, Tori?
I'll second.
Tori seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good luck. Good luck. Next on the agenda, I think we just have meeting minutes. Do we have a motion on that?
Yes, give me a moment. Yeah, I move to accept the minutes of the planning board meeting from January 23rd, 2024, as written.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. All right, any further from staff?
Just, it's looking like our next regularly scheduled meeting will probably be canceled, the second March meeting, but we will very likely have several items on both of our April meetings, so there will be, I'm expecting several applications in the next week or so,
Okay.
our meetings in April will be busier.
Anything further from the board? All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You seconded that, Tori? We don't want to
Second.
we don't
I
have to come
second the
back for a
motion to
meeting
adjourn.
tomorrow.
Yes. Okay.
Too soon, Jim.